In the beginning, there was no boundary between dream and waking, only the flow, the ceaseless current of what is and what is not. The world breathed through mist, and in that mist, a man once sat by a quiet river. His name was Zhuangzi, known to us as Zhuangzi, a sage of ancient China, a poet of paradox, a dreamer who asked questions not to find answers, but to set the soul free. He said once, "He who dreams of drinking wine may weep in the morning. He who dreams of weeping may wake to feast." The things we dream, how real they seem. But when we awaken, we realize it was all a dream. Someday, there will be a great awakening, and then we shall know that this life is but a great dream. The world remembers him as a philosopher, but Zhuangzi was not teaching. He was dancing with existence. His words were not doctrines. They were ripples in water, inviting us to see that meaning is fluid, that truth is a cloud that cannot be grasped. He lived during the Warring States period, a time when kings sought power and thinkers sought truth. Yet Zhuangzi refused all titles, all crowns, all certainties. He chose instead the open air, the empty sky. When they offered him a position in the royal court, he laughed. "I would rather drag my tail in the mud than be a turtle enshrined in death." And so he walked, away from gold, away from pride, into the whispering wilds of the Tao. For him, the Tao, the way, was not a path one could find. It was the rhythm beneath all things, the pulse that moves through heaven and earth, through laughter and silence, through the birth of stars and the fall of leaves. To know the Tao, Zhuangzi said, is not to understand but to become empty, to flow like water, to rest like wind upon the mountain, to dream without fear of waking. And so tonight, we enter his world, the world between worlds, where a butterfly dreams of being a man, and a man wonders if he is a butterfly. This is the journey beyond the dream, the story of Zhuangzi. Before we begin, if the words you hear tonight awaken something in you, a stillness, a question, or a soft smile, I invite you to stay with us, to like, to subscribe, to walk this path again in other stories of wisdom. For every act of listening is itself a kind of awakening. The river flowed as it always had, soft, endless, murmuring the speech of heaven. Zhuangzi sat beside it, his robe touching the earth, his eyes lost in the horizon. A student once asked, "Master, what is it that moves, the wind or the flag?" Zhuangzi smiled and said, "It is neither the wind nor the flag that moves. It is the mind that moves." And in that single line, he turned the world upside down, for what moves, what stirs, what shifts, is never out there, but within us. The flag, the wind, the river, all flow within consciousness. He looked into the water, and what he saw was not reflection, but the infinite dissolving into the infinite. To Zhuangzi, the self was like the current, always changing, never graspable. If one tries to catch it, the water slips away. If one lets go, it carries us home. He wrote, "Heaven and earth were born with me, all things and I are one." But what does it mean to be one with all things? It is not an idea, not a belief. It is the feeling of standing in silence, while everything else breathes through you. It is the river knowing itself in every ripple. It is the dreamer dissolving into the dream. In one tale, Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly, carefree, floating, unaware of himself. When he awoke, he no longer knew. Was he Zhuangzi dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuangzi? That question, Peter's voice lingers, was never meant to be solved. It was meant to unmake the need for solving. To awaken is not to escape the dream, but to see that dreaming and waking are two wings of the same butterfly. He would often walk by the river at dawn, speaking not to men, but to the sky. To him, the greatest wisdom was not in answers, but in laughter. the kind that comes when you realize how small the self truly is. The perfect man, he said, uses his mind like a mirror. It receives but does not hold. It reflects but does not cling. That, perhaps, is freedom. Not the freedom to have, but the freedom to let go, to flow, to become no one, and thus become everything. And as the light touched the river, Zhuangzi closed his eyes, feeling the world disappear. Was this sleep or awakening? He could not tell, nor did he wish to. Because in that stillness, between one breath and another, he knew what it meant to dream without end. There is a place between sleep and waking where the world trembles, not in fear, but in wonder. It was there that Zhuangzi dreamt of the butterfly, not a metaphor, not a story, but a dream so vivid that the boundary of being melted away. He fluttered through sunlight, light as breath, drifting through fields of silent flowers. There was no philosophy there, no teaching, no teacher, only the dance of wind and wing. When he awoke, his heart was still filled with the rhythm of flight. He looked upon his hands, his face, his body, and asked softly, "Was I Zhuangzi dreaming I was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I am Zhuangzi?" This question was not for the mind. It was for the soul that remembers its freedom. For to awaken, Zhuangzi taught, is not to return from illusion. It is to awaken within it. Because perhaps we were never asleep, he said. Once you have seen the unity of all things, you no longer see death as loss nor life as gain. And so, the butterfly became more than a symbol. It was a mirror, reflecting the mystery that everything we know, everything we hold, might be nothing more than a dream dreaming itself. When Zhuangzi walked through the market, he saw people chasing certainty like moths chasing flame, and he laughed gently, not out of mockery, but out of compassion. He whispered to his student Huixi, "You are so sure that you know. But what if the knowing itself is the illusion?" Huixi frowned. Zhuangzi smiled. The river wind carried their silence like music. The butterfly's dream is not to deny reality. It is to remind us that truth is not fixed. That meaning is not carved in stone, but blooms like mist, appearing, vanishing, yet leaving beauty in its wake. Zhuangzi said, "The true man of Tao forgets himself. He is not bound by praise or blame. He follows the breath of heaven, and so he did. He lived without the burden of becoming someone. He wrote without the desire to be remembered. He dreamed, not because he wanted to escape, but because the dream itself was his way of being free. Imagine now, you are the butterfly. Your wings tremble, fragile and radiant. You do not think of yesterday or tomorrow. You do not name the flowers you land upon. You simply are. That is awakening. To awaken is to see that both the butterfly and the man are real, yet neither exists apart from the other. Dream and dreamer breathe the same breath. The world, Zhuangzi said, is neither true nor false. It is the flowing, a dance of opposites, each arising because of the other. When life and death, existence and non-existence are no longer opposed, then you can enter the perfect harmony of the Tao. In this harmony, there is no struggle, no victory, no defeat, only the quiet acceptance that the universe has always been awake. We were only dreaming that we slept. And so, Zhuangzi became like the butterfly again, laughing at the kings who fought over dust, smiling at the scholars who argued over names. He saw the absurdity of men trying to capture the wind with nets of logic. The fish forget they are in water, he wrote. The man forgets he lives in the Tao. Perhaps, to remember the Tao is not to understand it, but to stop resisting its flow. One night, Zhuangzi sat beneath a tree and watched the stars ripple in the pond. A moth drifted near the flame of his lamp, dancing with its death. He whispered, almost to himself, "The butterfly's dream never ends. It only changes its form." And as he watched, he smiled. That serene, timeless smile of a man who no longer feared the illusion of life. Because to him, illusion was not the opposite of truth. It was the doorway to it. So when he closed his eyes that night, the boundary dissolved once more. Was he the sage who dreamed, or the dream that became sage? Was he the voice or the silence between the words? He did not seek the answer. He simply breathed and let the dream continue. As the years flowed by, Zhuangzi grew older but never heavier. His hair whitened like frost upon the reeds, yet his laughter remained light as air. He had long ceased to argue with the world. He had learned instead to listen, to the silence between sounds, to the emptiness between words. To know that you do not know, he once said, is the highest wisdom, and so he no longer sought to teach. He simply walked through life as one walks through a dream, unhurried, unbound, unafraid. One morning, a friend found him sitting by the river again, his gaze resting upon the slow movement of clouds. He asked, "Master, why do you sit here alone day after day?" Zhuangzi smiled, his voice a whisper carried by the breeze. When the heart is quiet, even the river speaks. He had come to understand the essence of Wu Wei, the art of non-action, not as laziness but as perfect harmony with the flow of the Tao. To do nothing, yet let everything be done. To be still, yet let the universe move through you. He once told his disciple, "Fish are happy in the river because they follow their nature. Why should man be different? To live according to the Tao is not to control life, but to let it unfold like the blooming of a lotus, naturally, quietly, beautifully." As his days grew shorter, Zhuangzi began to speak of death as one speaks of the setting sun, a part of the same light, not an end, but a transformation. He said, "Life and death are one thread, drawn together like the night and the day." And when his friends wept at the thought of losing him, he only laughed gently. "Why cry?" he said. "The four seasons take their turns. Birth and death are but changes in the same melody. I will simply go where the Tao takes me." They asked him what kind of burial he desired. Zhuangzi closed his eyes, smiling. "The sky will be my coffin, the earth my pillow, the sun and moon my jade discs, and the stars my jewels. What more do I need?" In those words there was no fear, no attachment, only the serene understanding that the sage had already dissolved into the very rhythm of existence. He no longer clung to being Zhuangzi. He was the river, the sky, the butterfly, and the silence that holds them all. One evening, as twilight embraced the world, he sat once more by the river, the same river that had heard his first questions, the same flow that had carried his laughter. He watched the reflections tremble in the current, and for a moment it was unclear which was more alive, the sky above or the sky beneath. He whispered, "The way is the returning. To return is to rest is to be whole again." When the night fell, no one saw him leave. Only the moonlight remained, silver and still, dancing upon the water like the flutter of a distant wing. And in that silence, it was as if the butterfly had finally returned to the dream. Or perhaps the dream had finally returned to the butterfly. Zhuangzi was gone, but the Tao remained, and in the heart of every quiet listener, his laughter still echoes, gentle, boundless, free. In the boundless quiet that followed Zhuangzi's passing, the world did not mourn. The rivers continued to flow, the mountains still held their ancient posture, and the wind carried his laughter into eternity. For in truth, Zhuangzi had not vanished. He had merely become invisible. The people said, "The sage has returned to the Tao." But the Tao is not a place, nor a god, nor a path to be walked upon. The Tao is the breath before breath, the silence before sound, the stillness before thought. It is the invisible rhythm by which all things live, and to which all things return. Zhuangzi once said, "The perfect man has no self. The spiritual man has no achievement. The true sage has no name." And so, as his name faded from memory, his essence deepened in truth. He became the falling leaf, turning in the current. He became the cloud, drifting without direction. He became the butterfly, fluttering between worlds, neither awake nor asleep. In that stillness, he discovered the secret of all existence. To be at peace is to flow with change. To flow with change is to rest in eternity. He who knows the joy of heaven and earth, Zhuangzi whispered once, knows that life and death are but one movement, the opening and closing of a single breath. And so, when the sages speak of Zhuangzi now, they do not speak of a man, but of a way, a pulse of the universe that hums beneath all things. The Tao cannot be seen, but it can be felt in the gentle flow of water, in the bending of grass beneath the wind, in the quiet acceptance of a heart that has stopped fighting the world. He had taught us not through commandments, but through dreams, through laughter, through the calm gaze of someone who has already crossed the river and no longer fears the other shore. For what is the Tao, if not the home we never truly left, the mirror that reflects both the butterfly and the man, the dream and the dreamer, as one? He once said, "When you break from the shell of the self, you will know the vastness of the sky. When you forget to strive, you become part of the great rhythm. And that rhythm, gentle, eternal, unseen, is the heartbeat of the Tao." If you listen closely enough, you can still hear it tonight, in the wind that moves through the bamboo, in the pulse of your own breathing, in the stillness behind every thought. Zhuangzi is there, not as memory, but as the quiet that holds all things. He is the echo in the emptiness, the shimmer upon the water, the laughter of the butterfly that no longer dreams of being human. He is everywhere, because he is nowhere. And the Tao endures. It cannot be spoken, cannot be named, cannot be lost. If you have walked this far with us, through the laughter, the silence, and the endless dream of Zhuangzi, then you too have touched the edge of the Tao. Take a breath, feel the stillness, listen to the sound of your own life unfolding. Every ending is a beginning, every loss a return. As Zhuangzi once said, "Heaven and earth were born with me, and all things and I are one." Let his words stay with you, as a whisper in the wind, as a light in the quiet corners of your heart. And if this journey has touched you, help it continue to flow, like a river that never ends. Like this video, share it with others, and subscribe so that the stories of wisdom and wonder may keep breathing, reaching those who still seek the way. For in sharing truth, you help the Tao speak, not through words, but through the calm it leaves behind.